What's going on, everybody? A little bit late, but just trying to get everything set up a little bit beforehand, but getting everything going. STL Sunday, 3D Printing Sunday. It lives by many names. It's had a sabbatical, partially back. Hopefully you guys check in where you're watching from. This week, we are going to be continuing working on my Class 1 Jeep, bringing this series back, but I'm bringing it back as functional time. So that is, it's for projects that I need to work on anyway. I enjoy this show, so I want to bring it back for that reason. But that is, we're still going to get things done that I need to get done during these times. Today, what we're going to be working on is the dash panel that I need to have for this Class 1. And a little bit different than typical, the thumbnail of this video is actually a picture of a builder by the name of Westmade, and I've linked his channel in the description below. You can also check out his Instagram, things like that. He makes a lot of scratch-built bodies, and that one that's in the thumbnail is actually... Did you just get up? I mean, not too long ago. I just have morning voice. This is what I sound like in the morning. I'm not a morning person. But Westmade designed that handmade body, made it, and then he had also modeled up a dashboard that he 3D printed. So we're going to take a look at a model that he shared with me, see how that fits into this, and then look at the possibility of using elements of it, since we're looking at two completely different bodies that were designed completely differently. Then that's, I have not brought them into each other to look at it or anything. We're just going to see how it works. So we're going to switch over to the Fusion workspace. This is a model if you've watched any of these videos lately or any of my videos lately, you've probably seen a version of this model. This is the current status, for the most part, of the Class 1. And you can see there is a hole where there should be some sort of dash. We have fabricated the chassis, or the tube work. You can see it here behind me, and it has felt like everything is lining up just perfectly, that I feel really confident as far as trying to then work with these virtual tube locations to make the 3D printed dash that we have. Now, just like in a real car, when you start doing down tubes, you start having to work around some things. So we're going to have the same situation. It's tough to make down tubes in a vehicle work with a stock dash. Oftentimes you end up cutting a dash up. Mine, we have the ability to work around. So we're going to see how it all kind of fits and go from there. But one thing I want to do first is I do want to open up Westmade's dash, which I have saved as a file already. Now, the nice thing is that he did send me a native file. So he sent me an actual Fusion 360 file, not just a STL. Apologize for my voice. I'll try not to clear my throat over and over. This is his dash. Now, like I said, it's native, so you can see at the bottom his whole design history. Now, we could go through and just kind of look at his entire history. Or we can just hit the play button down here in the bottom left corner. You can do this to your own files as well and see how you've gone through. But if you hit play, it'll go through and kind of show you. So it looks like he started with some reference photos, some planes, did something, then he's mirrored it back and forth. He created a indent on one side. Looks like he kind of copied, projected that over, bringing in some elements of a dash. He's created some extra planes there, so I imagine that he's got some reference photos that he's possibly using for things. Oh, I saw a switch panel reference specifically. Little rocker switches. He flipped one of them over just for extra details. Kind of cool to see all of that come together. Some details on that glove box area. He's working on the details around the gauge cluster. super fine details. Oh, he brought in a Jeep logo from somewhere else and then scaled it to fit. He must have had that in a different model, possibly. He's working on the glove box keyhole. He brought a whole radio in, it looks like, separately, probably from another model. Hopefully it was another Jeep model. Oh, actually I can see over here, 1960 Chevy truck radio. So he's looking aftermarket. But that was Wes's. That was a quick version of Wes's model. But you can see this is what he was working with. Now let's just do the quick and easy option, and we're just going to do. Oh, so I currently don't have my design history tracking, so we're going to go up, capture design history. Quickly do that, and then we're going to go back and do an insert derive. As soon as it catches up, it's doing some thinking. You can see in the bottom corner. Insert derive, and now we're going to go, let's see, what was it called? I think I called it Westmade Jeep Commando Dash. That's going to drop, so it's going to make me save it. That's fine, save, even though I had already saved it. Now we're going to select, oh, we do have multiple bodies in here. So let's just see what we have. We've got a number. I'm going to hit cancel on this. I'm not going to insert derive that yet. Since I have Wes's, let's see if we can do some combining of bodies. I'm going to just see what he's got separate and combine those all into one. I just hit the this combine feature here at the top so that I can bring it all in. You'll also need to do this at times depending on what you're 3D printing. If you have a bunch of separate bodies in CAD and you export them, it's only going to export the body you select. So make sure that you combine those at times, or you'll lose details that you thought you had. He's got one that says hide one. I imagine that's, let's just isolate that. To do that, if you see a body on the left side in your feature tree there, you can hit right click and then isolate down at the bottom, and it'll turn everything else off. So obviously he used this somewhere in the modeling process. He even labeled it hide one. So we're going to unisolate. We're going to turn it back off because it's obviously not needed. And then we've got another gauge. So again, we're going to hit the combine. We're going to hit our main and then grab that rectangular gauge. Hit OK. Now we do have, let's see. We also have we have this radio and we have the Jeep logo, which we suspected he brought in from somewhere else. Now, I am not going to worry about that Jeep logo because it's so tiny. I'm going to be 3D printing this probably on a FDM, not a resin. So we're going to skip that Jeep component. But we do have the radio. So let's try and still look at the radio. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it though because it's a separate component. Let's see if that does it. It looks like it will. Okay, so good. So now it looks like we will turn off the rest of that. So everything is off except that single body, which now we're in good shape. I'm going to hit save again. And Westmade is in here. Good seeing you, sir. So now we've combined all that. Now, again, we're going to come back into our main file. And if you want to bring in a model from either a design you did previously or a design that you downloaded, whatever it is, you go on your screen here, up at the top, there's insert. Drop that down, you go insert derive. And then you need to go find your model or your file, hit select. Then you need to select the body, which we just prepared. So we're gonna hit OK. Let's see what Westmade's Jeep and mine look like in the same thing. Obviously he brought his in It brought his in where he had his in space, which is not the same as mine, but that's okay. We're going to move it. Just in case I know I click around sometimes. The little 4-way arrow at the top, that's move copy. We're going to select that. We're going to select a face of this thing. And then we need to start getting fancy. So I'm going to rotate to the top, and I'm going to... Oh, I was moving it. There we go. Oh, I had faces selected. See over here on this window, it said faces instead of bodies. I was not paying attention. So now we've got that. I'll rotate to the top. I'm going to spin this thing 180 degrees. Then we're going to still be on the top, but I'm going to try and get this thing centered up. My computer's being a little laggy. I think it's just the this model is heavy for one, and also with streaming and all of that. Let's see. We're not in a bad height spot. So you can obviously see we're a hair on the wider side. Now this hole here should be dead centered. I also started, so I could do some measuring and things like that, but I'm just going to try and get us somewhat close for now. We're going to hit OK. So by all means, we can see that we've got some major collision going on, but we're gonna work with some things here just to see, because in all honesty, we're not miles away. I mean, we're not that close either, but we're not as far away as I probably would have thought from the outset. Because what we can do is we can start chopping this thing up and kind of modifying it to work as we want. And we're just going to play around with that a little bit. Whether or not everything ends up to be 100% the model we use, that's a different story. But maybe scale it down a smidgen. It's definitely a possibility. We've got this is the link here to the file. You can see it's got that little black arrow there. That just means that it's linked to the previous file. We don't need to do that anymore because we're going to start tearing this thing apart. So we're going to right click and then go break link. And now it is just a body that lives in this model. So we're going to start, we can do whatever we want and go from there. I'm going to hide it for a second. We're going to take a measurement. We're going to go from the inside corner of my cowl on one side to the inside on the other. And that is right here on the right side, 168. You can click on it and it will copy. So I'm going to throw that in my calculator. Oh, it's probably because it typed in millimeters and everything. 168.386. I'm just hitting enter so it drops it in the populate, or in the history over there on the side. This is just the regular Windows calculator, but I use it all the time, so it is always open. So opening up Westmade's dash again, and we're going to do the same thing outside to outside, and we've got 172 on the dot. So now let's just we're going to take 168, let's divide that by 172, and we get 97.8989, repeating. Control A, copy. So now we can come in, hit the move, or not move copy, sorry. I need scale, not move. So drop this down, and then there's a scale. Select the body. Select the point. We'll just, it doesn't really matter. But let's go. Give me a point. Fine, we'll just do it about the center point of my hood there. Scale factor. We're going to paste that in, which is just the exact value, and it will shrink it down. So now it should perfectly match up to the corner of our cowls, which it does on this side basically, and that side. Man, I got it good and centered, and we got it in there. So that was, now we scaled that based on over like uniform. So we took the whole thing and we scaled it appropriately. Whereas you can scale non-uniform, so you can scale differently in width and height and length independently, different values for each. And we could absolutely do that. I don't like doing that with items like this because it would have turned this nice circular cluster into something that was like a squished oval. So I would rather scale and then start chopping up and moving around. One thing that I know I want to do is I want to raise this dash up so that because it's got a lot of dead area above the gauges and stuff, and that is an area where I can easily I can miss that without losing the look of this dash. So one thing I also want to do is, it's hard to see what's going on, so I'm going to right click on the body on the left and go to opacity control. We're going to do it at like 50%. Now we can see through to the back side of my dash, see what's going on a little bit. It just gives us a little bit more clarity as to what we're doing. So now let's do a little bit more cleanup just before we get wild. I'm going to start hiding a bunch of these bodies in my model. Body parts I've got in a separate folder. Windshield frame can stay on. What do I have this called? That tub can stay on. We can start turning off a number of these cage bits. Just so that we have a clear look at the parts that we are really the most interested in. The titanium welding has been going really well so far. I'm super pumped to get back to that. But more so even yet, I've got the molds for my carbon fiber stuff. Well, one complete 3-piece mold ready to go. And that is very exciting to me. So I'm ready to tackle that possibly today after the Chiefs football game. All right, we've got some of that cleaned out. So now we could even turn off some of these chassis braces in the rear. So another thing is if you have a part in your model here, sometimes it's hard to find exactly. If you have it and you select it and then hit right click, go down to find in browser, then it will go down in the feature tree and it will zoom exactly to where you need to be. So it makes things much, much easier. You don't have to do so much, just, it depends on how heavy your stuff gets, especially. I know that not everyone is this wild, so hopefully that is clearing some space up. Now we can rotate to the back and see, now we've got a much better look. Now, what I was talking about was I wanted to hit move, select the dash, and I want to look at moving this whole thing up. Now, if I want to keep it underneath of that cowl is one thing. Let's just start with that and hit OK. Dang, never saw find in browser. That's cool. It is a handy tool. Like, not gonna lie. Especially if you start getting a ton of stuff in, it's just like it, and vice versa. If you have it on if you've got a body in your tree over here and you're like, I don't know what this is. you know, like say it's something small, like this tube is large and you can obviously see it. If you right click it and hit find in window, it will highlight and zoom into. So you can use it both ways. It's nice to have. Okay. Now, like I was saying, if I wanted to have this tucked in behind or underneath of the cowl, that's one thing. But I don't know that I do. I think it could come out from there a little bit, and you know, give us like a shelf on the top just above the windshield. That's probably a little bit more realistic. Which, so let's pull that thing out like. Well, one thing is, let's turn on my seats. So, seat model, dash model. That gives us a nice little shelf on top. Also, it'll probably give us some room to come around those tubes, as you can see there. Possibly you can see there. Let's exaggerate that maybe even a little bit more. Give us a little bit more material. About like that. So that gives us some, we'll be able to cut around the tube then. The whole CJ dash was flush, didn't stick out. That's I remember, but obviously this is a slightly different version. And that way I can hide around that tube a little bit. That was the original reason I wanted to keep it underneath, because a CJ dash was so basic. You know, we're going, ooh, here is the other issue. Remember I have those shifters in mine, which basically, which I already knew they're too far forward in the interior to be proper. But the VFD has those shifters. They're in there already. So it's like, I feel like I need to use them. Like I want to use them. They're there and they're flat. Like even if I add something additional, but they can't be behind the dash. So we can kind of make the dash, you know, rather than have the grill area. What was that? Like the speaker grill in the CJs, the single speaker in the center. Then that's a whole nother thing. But so that's an element. Again, there are C cars, and mine are not as accurate as as Wes's. So this is, I mean, this is always the struggle, is trying to go through and make these decisions, how you want it to look. The other reason that I don't mind bringing it further back is that I think that I want the distance between the dash and the seat to not be so far. Now my seat distance is adjustable. It can just be placed wherever it needs to be. But it's, you know, it's one of those things. You get those models where everything's wild far apart, and it's just never going to be realistic. I'm not saying that this isn't one of them, but I can do my best to try and make it more reasonable. Now, I do have a split between where the design of my cowl is and my windshield frame, and I probably don't want this to gap over that unless I do a little bit of a taper behind it, which is always an option. Either way, we've got some modification to do to make everything work with this. So let's, we're going to isolate. Well, actually, no, I'm going to unisolate. I need some info still. I'm going to turn the opacity back up to 100 so that I can see it. How many more scale points in the dash compared to using a VS410 dash? I don't know, but the VS410 dash isn't made for this model either, so that doesn't work at all. I need to, it doesn't really matter because it doesn't work. So even just details like this, Wes has a bunch of switches there. I don't have room for these switches. So if you have a model, you're able to get a hold of something for some reason. Can't put shifters on tunnel further back. I could, but I'm not going to because it's designed into my my transmission tunnel, and therefore I don't want to not use it. So we're just gonna let's see how Wes did this. So I just cut flush. I just wanted to see what that would do. He's got some features still on there. I'm just kind of doing some of this in a quick and dirty type way. I'm just going to kind of, you can remove faces and do weird stuff. I'm just doing some squares, filling in. I'm going to do that as a join. But reason I was doing this was just I wanted to get rid of a couple of features like that, and then I was going to try and just do like something along the lines of a move, but only selecting faces. We're going to see. Oh, he's got that's an interesting surface in there. I'm surprised that it doesn't have a, let's see, this may not work how I wanted it to. See if it works before I, nope. And try one more time. That face is a little bit different, so we may have to do a split body and then just start moving some things around. Yeah, Wes said he used a tapered extrude, which makes sense, but it does look like that it won't allow me to do what I was hoping to do. It's being funny. That's okay. We've got some other cleanup to do instead of that anyway. The bottom of this dash is going to have to get moved up because it's also too low. So let's do a couple of things. Let's do an offset plane. We're just going to select the top of the dash and then drag that down just below where that detail line is on the gauge cluster. We're going to hit OK. We're going to destroy this vent, but that's fine because we're not going to end up being able to use that. So then I'm going to hit split body here up at the top. And I'm going to select the body that we're splitting, which is the dash. And the tool is going to be that plane we just created. Now, we can also do another offset plane. Select that, and we can just bring that down all the way to, like, say, that little detail line there. Hit OK, and we're going to do that same thing again, but just with the bottom section only, since it's a separate body now. Hit OK. Now we've got a little straggler body that was there in the middle. And we can take a measurement between these two planes, 4.985 millimeters. I hit copy on that number. And then we can select that bottom section and go up and then just hit paste. So now we just brought the bottom of that dash up just in that one section without distorting the shape of that bottom, that bottom feature at all. Just kind of helps make tuck this thing in a little bit more. That was something that we were also going to look at doing here for the top. So let's do that whole process in repeat. I'm going to bring it down just over the top of the gauge cluster. Nope, that's going to be, it's going to cut our radio up. Let's go right at the top of the radio. Ah, I don't like that there's a hole in the middle of that, but... Oh, looking on this side, we're going to lose some detail there, so we're going to go a little bit higher yet. That's okay. We're going to hit all right. We're going to do this one more time. It's thinking, don't worry. Just like me, it's a little slow in the morning for some reason. And we don't have to worry about this outside radius because it doesn't fit the vehicle anyway. So we obviously have, I mean, in all actuality, I don't need anything above that. But let's not quite. No, let's do. Let's just cut that whole body off at that point, and then we'll work with what's above it when we have. So now we're just gonna that off. Now we've got all those planes showing up, so we can turn those off here in the left side under the construction section. So now we've got a one thing is that this bottom section is still separate. So we can combine those again. Select our main portion, select the bottom portion, hit OK. And now two became one, just like the Spice Girls always dreamt of. So we've got that. Again, we've got a shifter clearance issue. I'm going to look at raising this back up a little bit. Maybe I'm looking at that brake line between my cowl and my windshield. Probably going to add a little bit over the top of this, but not a lot. Ban Josh for 300 seconds for a Spice Girls reference. Was that right? Were they the ones that said two become one? I'm trying to remember. And it's early. You are correct. I'm happy and sad at the same time. So, let's 600 for testing to sing it. Okay. I have shifters. Shift. I dropped the hood. Don't worry. I'm a professional. I am going to try not to forget to switch back, but I'm just going to take a reference measurement since I don't have that part of the model. But I know that the top of the shifter is 17-ish millimeters from, I'm switching back to Fusion, 17 millimeters or so from that line. So I'm gonna do a offset plane again. We're gonna use the front. No, I'm not gonna use the front. I'm going to use the back of the trans, which sits at a appropriate location, thankfully. And then we're gonna do a sketch. I'm gonna select that plane that we just created. And I'm going to project in, hit P for project, select that line, and let's see, that's really the only line that I need. That's my reference anyway. So there's that line that I just projected in onto the plane that we had created. Now, I know that it sits right over top of this, so I'm going to project, or just grab a couple of lines. We're going to hit P for project again. And I'm just going to grab a point there and a point over here and hit OK. Enter. Now I'm going to create a line. We're just going to go straight up. Both sides. I'm so confused. Sorry, Jesse. Thinking. Un momento por favor. We're going to close that. I was just drawing some stuff randomly, but that's okay. We're going to bring this to a level. I'm going to throw in a dimension from that line we projected. No. From that line down to that top. I'm just going to type in 17 when it allows me to, so that I know where. Okay, so that's where the tops of the shifters will be, is right there. Let's just do, I'm going to close in that box. It'll turn blue in here. See? She. And then we're going to just blow a hole through the dash at this point. So now it cut all the way through there. Now you can see it's also trying to cut apart my transmission. I've shown this before, but we don't want to do that. So over here on the right side of your dialog box, you just drop down the objects to cut. And we're going to deselect everything except driver dash. We're going to hit OK. So now that's obviously just to the point where the shifters will be. That's not, you don't want it just that tight. It would clear, but that's obviously still pretty lame. So I just know that that's the clearance I need. From there, we can do some style. Maybe what I'll do is just follow the grill speaker or speaker grill trim, and I'll just cut all of that out, and then we'll kind of make it flow and look fancier and things like that at that point. So that's not too bad. We do still, of course, have to put a cap across the top of this. And we have everything to fill in and flow and whatnot. But this is just taking something that was nowhere close to really fitting and just seeing what we could do. It was kind of fun to have a model from Wes, and then modify from there without spending all the time that he did to make some like accurate gauge bezels. And granted, this is a 1960s Chevy truck radio, but let's see something. Canvas. I bet we have Wes's reference photo in here. Do we? Why will it not show it? So we've got so here's the photos Wes used for reference. Kind of fun. You know, you can see he overlaid a commando dash that he had so he could get some proportions off of. Photos are always only so good because they have projections and things like that. But that's kind of cool. So it looks like he had the main dash photo. Oh no, that was the actual instrument cluster. So he had a. Let's see if we can isolate these. I've never done that. Nope. Let's turn off bodies. So, he had one of just the actual gauges, the switches that he made on one side. He's got the big one, which is the entire dash area. And he had a close-up of the gauge cluster. Ooh, a nice one. A commando speedometer went to a... This has to be in kilometers. There's no way. I don't think any Jeep that was not a SRT version has ever had a 180 mile per hour dash. So none of that important for what we're doing, but still fun to see where we started and what we are trying to destroy of Wes's work to make work in my funky version of a commando. This outside stuff is still going to be a bit of an issue. There's a number of ways we could separate this and make this thing work, which we can still do, even though it had a bit of a extruded cut thing. I mean, granted, none of these are going to come out quite as well in my on FDM, but in the spirit of Wes sharing the model, let's do it. Let's do it in a convoluted way. So let's do a cut or create a plane just here on the outside. And I'm doing this for a reason, because I don't really need to make a cut out there. Again, it's just being a little bit of a pain today. I know what I should do is I should delete all those out of this. And I can make this model a lot lighter. This is just a dash model, so I don't need a lot of this information. Let's see. Okay, there we go. We have more. I don't need the axles either. And no, these models are not publicly available models. These are models that I have because of work. So unfortunately, not something that everyone else will be able to have to work with. But okay, maybe that will help make this run a little bit smoother while also streaming. So let's do a split. We're going to split the dash at that line. Then I'm going to do another offset of that same one. Just outside here. Something about like that. We're going to hit OK. I'm going to do a split of that body at that plane. So we're gonna end up using that previous one, and I don't want to lose that shape. We're gonna have to see about what would be the best way. We'll get back to that. I think let's just work on this for a second. And I'm not necessarily thinking through my whole thought process in a great way, but just moving and making progress is a whole nother thing. You know, just get it done, figure it out, figure things out later. So now we've got this bezel is now a body, basically. I isolate it. I could even take and just do a press pull on that side now and just, we could trim that up about like so. And then isolate, and then I could just do a quick measure if I wanted from there to wow, exactly 10 millimeters. Look at me go. I didn't even pay attention to what I was doing. Now we can just grab that body, and I could just move it 10, and I have gone the long way around, shortening up a gauge bezel. Now I'd probably want to combine these items again. Still gotta, oops. Some stragglers, but long way around. But now we've got a 3-switch panel instead because my dash isn't going to be in the way when we cut this whole thing off to make it fit in the body, which is something we probably need to look at doing real quick. So let's just select the front face here for now. I'm going to hit P for project. I'm going to grab the inside surface of my cowl. Let's turn off the seats again. So that's cutting through a lot, obviously. Now, I don't need to cut. We're going to project a little bit more. We're going to project the outside edge as well, just so that I have all of the info and I can make a decision based on that. Come on, being sticky. Whoop, didn't grab it. So we've got the outside as well. This model hates me right now. But we're getting there. Give it a second. So now I can see, where the outside of the body needs to be, where the inside is, and I can maybe, I brought that tube right to the edge. So my thought of wanting to hide that tube doesn't really work that well. And I will say that I can tell my angles, like this is something that, like I was talking about, my confidence in it. You can see I designed in a very slight gap between the windshield frame and that down bar. Switching over to my camera. In the actual construction of this, I have basically that exact, or very close to, as close as makes no difference, that exact same gap between there. But the distance between where the down bar is and the outside, not exactly the same. I can tell that this bar sits just to the inside of this windshield frame a little bit. So I know that, while looking at the model that I have in hand versus what I have in CAD, I know that I've got some difference, which is totally to be expected. So yeah, this tube sits a little bit in, maybe here, when looking from the back, which is a significant amount in, which is something that we're going to have to just deal with. The points that it started at up here and down here were perfect, but in the middle with the angles, you can just only do so much. And that's still probably the most accurate that I've done one from reality to, from CAD to reality. But nonetheless, that's something that we'll combat and we'll design around at this point. So, oh, yep, haven't switched cameras. I haven't started designing anything yet. Anyway, sorry. I was saying that this tube sits into about here at this point. So it comes down and it kind of crosses this point and then comes down in and still lands in exactly the right point here and where my fixture was up top. So those are the things that I just know that I need to design around. Not a huge deal, but we have to definitely have to know. But that does allow me to probably bring the dash all the way to the outside of the body and still look pretty good. So I'm just going to drop a couple of lines, or a single line even, about like this, and I'm going to do a tangent constraint from there, and then from this one to the inside. We'll see what that does. If it wants to cooperate. Hold, please. And is it going to do it? Is it going to do it? Just doesn't want those two to be tangent. See if I can force it this way. Nope, it will. It just doesn't want to allow it. That's okay. Let's we're just gonna fake it, and from there we can just fill it to make it fake it till we make it. So I'm just making a couple of profiled closed profile areas so I can use them to cut with. This area down here, you can see this like lightly tinted blue showing that it's a closed profile, and I'm not getting it here, which I was expecting. So we need to find where the gap is. I don't know why this model is being kind of such a pain. Let me do, I'm going to kind of what I talked about earlier, find in browser, and I'm going to, no, I lied. That's not what I'm going to do. We're just going to turn bodies off for a moment. But we have to find where I've got some sort of break. And is that it right there? I think that it is. I can only go in so far, but I can see that there's two endpoints that are... Yep, that was it. Those are very annoying at times because those, that was as far as it let me zoom in, but it was still showing that there was a tiny little gap between them. So, turn bodies back on, turn body parts back on. But I did all of that because I'm about to just, oops, about to make the big cut through Wes's nice looking dash. Select that. We're just going to cut through. We're going to make sure again that we're only cutting the dash. which we are. But now it'll reasonably follow those lines, and I can start filling in and moving to make that fit once we get to that point. Now on this side, so it looks like this side Wes did model things a little bit differently, which I can show you what I was hoping to do on the other side with the switch panel. So we're gonna do the move command, and then I just clicked faces, and now over here, hoping what we can do is just grab all of those. We'll see if this works with that bottom face not being separate. Sometimes that won't work, but let's see. So I selected those faces, and we're just gonna, does work. There we go. We're gonna move that over. I like 15. So we moved that in 15 millimeters. Now, I mean, Wes did a crazy detailed little. This detail is going to be wasted on an FDM print, but just for the sake of CAD tutorial land, we're going to grab all of those faces. And now we just moved 15 millimeters, right? Oh, it says I've got one selected on the back, which we don't need. Oh, and I selected 2 random faces down here. That's cool. Okay. So you can see my my selection is all goofy. So we're gonna hit this set pivot, and then we're just gonna click there. So that way our axis or triad, whatever that thing is supposed to be called, is in the normal plane. So after you set it, you have to hit the little green check to mark that you're done. Now we moved it 15, but I only want to move it half that. So we're gonna move left -7.5. That way, we've recentered the latch into our now modified Cartesian coordinates. There we go. Thank you, sir. So, that's that. Now we did that cut, which was that one over there. Let's see if we can do a feature mirror on that. We're going to drop down in the create to mirror. We're going to do features. We're going to select the feature just down here out of the tree. That one that we knew it was down there. Select the plane, which is going to be the right plane because it's the center of the body. And it should cut that. Sometimes this doesn't work. And it's thinking. It's thinking. I don't have high hopes. If not, we can always just mirror our sketches. But let me tell you a story while we wait. I'm just kidding. I don't have any stories. It's only 11 a.m. Hey, it did work. Good enough. It's being slow, but it is doing things. We've got, that's Wes's cutout for the steering wheel. I would definitely need to make a more solid mount, but let's start making this thing look a little bit more like a slightly more finished part, just because I feel like we're doing a disservice at this point with just cutting up and not adjusting anything. So I'm projecting that face. I'm going to project that top line of the dash, which has a funky break in it or something. Probably from where I did a cut. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's along that line. That's okay. Let's just do a line across the whole top of the dash. So we've selected that. Now I think that we're dealing with, oh yeah, because this bumps out a little bit further, which is that where we started our plane? Can't remember. Let's go to the right side and take a look. Where's my sketch? Oh, my sketch is at a, I selected an angled plane. We're actually not, we're not going to do that. I'm going to delete that whole thing. We're starting over. There's a, there, Wes has angles on some of these things that kind of angle them down or back, which I get, but for my purposes, that's probably not going to be, or for what I was doing right there at least, was not going to be ideal. So we're going to select that front face instead. Have you ever tried Shaper 3D? No, I've not tried that one. I don't like a lot of it. This is a part that's designed, you know, into the rest of the things that are supposed to be more mechanical, and there's lots of like organic modeling programs that are much more suited for certain things. But when I'm trying to build it as a part of a system where everything else is done in this type of way, it's just not something that is real conducive to my workflow. So it's never been, you know, Blender or any of those, just not been something that I've been wanting to jump into. Oops, I projected a surface there that I didn't want to. Just looking to grab a couple of points for reference. Draw a line across here. That should keep me above any of the real big features on the dash, which is okay. So I just want to take that whole thing and we're going to bring it back. I'm going to crash it into the body work and everything. And I'm just going to do new body for the moment and hit OK. So we need to do trimming and cutting and all of those things still, but not a huge issue. So we're going to do the same thing here on the side though. I want to cap. Now this is at an angled plane, but we're going to select all of those and all of these just because. Project all of those surfaces. Got a couple of double lines down there. We're going to just bring that over to that edge. We're going to drop that horizontal. Now, the reason that I'm doing that is because I just want to create a bit of a capping piece. Which is in there a little bit. Just going to go in, say 3 millimeters. Same thing though, new body. We had a little bit of a, not just a straight line on the one side, but that's all right. We can get some of this stuff cleaned up, trimmed up as we go. I'm just trying to make it look more like a single piece so that I can start understanding how I want to mount it, where I want to mount it, where it needs to interact with the body. Let's connect the top and bottom for now. I still have some holes that I'm guessing Wes made add in here for mounting or accessories. I don't know. Maybe you had the key switch in there. I have no idea. But in reality, I probably could just make that whole side smooth and clean, and we'd be in pretty decent shape. So, oh, I'll probably mirror that to the other side before I do that. Switches is what he had in there. Does not surprise me. So we still have to clean up those items. But we are looking much more like what I had hoped. Oops. I'm just going to throw a chamfer on a couple of these. Try and make it look a little bit more like what he had in there before. Yeah, has a little bit of a flow, at least at that point. Not so many exact hard points. These are details that really should be put off until the very end. But that's fine. Gauges, more gauges. We made that cut for the shifters. At this point, we really need to make that cut more permanent or more to the size. So we are going to have to start putting some much larger holes through this, unfortunately. We're going to do the same thing on both sides. You can always just do one half and mirror it. You can do whatever works for you, but I'm just projecting some lines. Someone get that spammer. Thank you, Jesse. I'm going to... So, I don't know if I was right or not. I kept calling this a speaker grill area because I felt like on like some of the old CJs, there was a single center mounted speaker. I'm not sure if the Commando had the same thing or not. Now, when we cut off the bottom of the dash, we obviously created that little bit of a jog, which not going to be something we're going to have to clean that up separately. But let's see. That should have cleaned that, or that should have closed that up, but we're not getting... Oh, wait, yeah, we are. It's just not, it's harder to see. So we got to select all those profiles. Make sure that we're only cutting the dash. We are, so hit OK. CJ Grills had an instrument cluster in the center. Oh, that's right. What am I thinking of? I don't remember. So it's obviously not very reminiscent of the real thing in that area, but we're doing what we got to do to make it all work for mine. So those things are obviously going to... Now let's see if we can just do a delete face. Yep, we can. So every once in a while, when you have an area that it can easily figure out on its own, you can just, shift select all of these. So hold shift on your keyboard, select all of the faces you have in mind. Sometimes when you rotate around, it gets all funky. I should be isolating it, but right click, delete. Let it think for a second. Did one side, will it do the other? And yes, no, taking bets, taking bets. You know, we could have done a sketch and an extrude at this point, even easier, but for some reason today it's being a little heavy with us. I do have some other files open that I probably should close. It did it. There we go. We're gonna this file's not, that should not be very heavy. I don't know what's going on, but we could probably make a bit of fill that in a little bit more. Throw a chamfer on it just to make it look like an opening, because we will have those shifters underneath of there. Still has some of the flavor that Wes had spent all of that time designing so that I could hack up. Let's mirror that cap to the other side. Mirror that body. Mirror that. Mirror plane is the right one. Okay. Combine those. I'm probably going to just clean up the cuts on the side of these a little bit, make them a single line or plane all the way across, just to stop my OCD from being. I'm not OCD. Everyone says they're OCD. So we're just going to do something along those lines for now. I'm going to just grab like that line and project it so that I can use a parallel constraint from it to that. And I'm going to offset it in like 0.5 millimeter just to give myself a little bit. And for good measure, we're just going to do a construction line down the center, and we'll mirror those items across based on that line. Hit OK. Make sure we've got all of the profiles that it wants. Okay. Cut, and only do the dash. So now I've got some areas that are opening up that need closed off. But that is fine because that I can deal with. And that would have been a wild thin area anyway. So little things like that that need to be cleaned up are good to see now. And we'll make it easier to tackle. But honestly, something like this is about what I was hoping I was going to be able to do with a model. Because it's not always easy to work with a model and go from one side, from one way to the other. Are you going to resin or PLA print with the Prusa? That's like I had said that before. Details like this, a lot of these details will be so lost on FDM, which is my real plan. Although I do have a resin printer. I could just resin print it, which is definitely a possibility. So I was initially not planning to. For prototypes and things like that, it's likely not going to happen. I'll probably just FDM print at first, and see what it does because of laziness or just convenience at this point. Oh, because yeah, like fine details, these little tiny. Oh, I was gonna point to it on the screen so you can see it, like those switches up there. Those would be completely lost, especially the little. Yeah, there we go. Let's see. Man, just being a pain. Will all of this still has to get cleaned up? It's fine. Probably just gonna cut this thing in that way, and it'll be cleaned up just fine. Ick. We'll do a, let's see, show in browser so that I can turn that sketch back on. Hate when, that is the one thing with sketches. I wish that it would just go, doesn't want to go down to where it's supposed to. New bodies for those. Just filling in the areas that were giving me headaches. Do I have the same on the other side? I do, so I can mirror those over. We're going to end up with something that looks probably similar to what I was looking for. Would it be more scale if the dash was inside the cage, not cage going through it? I mean, at some points, but in the full size world, like oftentimes cages go through dashes. It's just the way of the world. And you know, CJ's the dash was tucked underneath. This is obviously a represent or a, I don't know what we were calling it. It's a interpretation of such a thing. Why did it not? Did I get it? I got a micro edge there. I'll clean that stuff up later when I can spend more time being fiddly. But anyway, like in lots of Jeeps, especially race cars or full-on trail rigs, you cut through dashes. That is the way that it goes, and that's what happens. This tube is actually a little bit further in, so my down bar will go through it, and it'll have a little cap that goes over each end still. So I'm not worried about it. But let's see. From here, things are going to start getting even more fiddly and nitpicky, and then I have to I have to figure out my mounting situations underneath of the dash, which, being that it's just a dash, could likely be something very basic, like a matching contour that I could just add some adhesive, some double-sided tape or whatever it is, so that I could just have a nice big surface and just press it into place, and it would be just fine, which is likely the way that the dash will attach. We could throw a 0.5 millimeter radius on the top, soften that up a little bit. But let's see. Um, I turned off visible edges just so that it softens it up, looks more, a little bit more like what just a normal part is, where you don't start seeing all of the little defined edges everywhere. But yeah. Let's go turn some stuff back on. So honestly, I'm not mad at my seat dimension. I've got a little bit more room there than probably needed. How'd you turn off edges? Down here at the bottom, you see this little area of your screen, the one that has like the monitor, display settings, visual style, and then you have shaded, shading with hidden edges. Now that looks like a mess. If you've got a lot of stuff here, it starts putting dashed lines on everything. So, you can start seeing all of everything. I mean, it looks kind of cool, right? Like you start seeing every race, every little internal feature. It's kind of a wild view to see all of that, but man, is it messy to try and design with. So that works well if you've got a much simpler. Shaded with visible edges is what I typically design in. That's the most reasonable, I would say, personally, to design with. And then you've also got wireframe, which is just the edges. I think only crazy people use this. I've used wireframe for some things, but not very often. I mean, it just gives you... I feel like this is the thing. Like they take a video of this, like spinning around like this, just so they can use it for like scenes in like Fast and the Furious, where someone's like designing and tuning, and it's like just a model like spinning. And what else do we have? Wireframe with hidden edges just goes, it does dotted lines on areas where you can't see, and then solid lines where you can. And what else do we have? We've got wireframe with visible edges only. This is if you don't have a graphics card. I mean, it looks kind of cool that way. It's like a drawing, I guess. In case you want to make your own RC coloring books, you can take a screenshot of this and then paint by numbers. So, shaded, and what else? All this stuff. Let's see. Every once in a while, I'll use camera in case you want to see. If you ever want to take a photo and like overlay some CAD images, you turn on perspective. So you go camera, perspective, and then you can like take a photo of that you've taken and a photo from CAD and then overlay them. It actually works pretty well. It just, it makes a hole that's here closer small or larger than the one that's further away. Where normal CAD, a hole that's close to you on the screen here or far away is the exact same size. So, designing with the perspective view on is a bad idea. I see people do it all the time. Like, you should be in orthographic. And honestly, I've seen Fusion default to perspective view on people, and I can't understand it. I feel like if you turn on perspective, it should be on for like 10 minutes and then turn itself off. So anyway, yeah, we're going to call it at about this. Obviously, lots left to do to make this work, but I am going to make this work. Because it's a cool little dash. Thanks to Wes Made. Again, I linked to his channel in the description below. And then also go check out his Instagram and stuff like that. Wild, cool, scratch-made stuff. Oh, excuse me. That was. So, cool scratch-made stuff. Very cool to see. Go look at it. Give them a follow. Thanks again for sharing your files, Wes. It was fun to play around with modifying someone else's stuff. Can't wait to see this in Alabama. Looking forward to it as well. So, we're going to call it at that for this week's STL Sunday. Appreciate you all for hanging out. It was a good time. We'll likely be back. We'll likely be back next week if anything happens. As long as I have something to do, which I'm pretty sure. Oh, before we go, I'll show you my project from yesterday for this. The start of my overly fancy tube notcher with a rotary table indicated. Aardvark spleen. Thank you, sir. I love STL Sunday. So there's the start of this. This thing could be fun. The idea is that I can bodies. This thing, the rotary table, everything. I've got too many things in here to really do this properly, but it will allow me to turn that the rotary, and I can adjust the angle. Oops. Of how my tube will notch properly onto the burr wheel. Everything's perfectly aligned on there. Bronze guide bushing. Ben had suggested that. But replaceable, changeable. And it'll do, like 163 to 17 degrees. So, that is the idea. I've got to finish up the... Oh, god dang it. I'm sorry. See? I was done, so I changed off of the view. Switch cameras. Here's the start of the tube notcher. Trim router. Rotary table. The parts that go on top. It's on center, so I have to make it... There's a spacer there, but that's fine. 107... It's 17 to 163 degrees is what it will allow to notch, and it's going to be interesting. Like I said, I still have to finish the laser cut plates that will mount the rotary and this all to one, and then I think that I'll probably have a support or something like that. I got to figure that out still, because it's a lot of... I don't want that all just hanging out there off of a 1/8 piece of steel. So a little bit left to decide on, but I mean 1/8 steel's still pretty strong. So, anyway, that's the idea. It's a wild overcomplicated over everything, but that's why I like it. Could you make that for a Dremel? I mean, you probably could. I don't know. Anything's possible. You made a poor man's lathe, Josh. No, that's not true. I have a lathe. This is much more specific. So, much more specific and still fairly small, which is nice. It's like that big. There you go. Does that make you feel better? Anyway, unneeded, unnecessary tools for the shop. But that's it. We got a Chiefs game to watch. We'll see how it goes. Then I got to get back to work because I've got carbon fiber to mold today, I think. This is my 3-piece mold for the fender. And that is... I'm very, very nervous. But we'll see how this... Anyway. All right. Have a good Sunday. We'll see you guys on all of the regular dates and Sunday. See you later.